So I'm with Infragistics. How many people here have heard of Infragistics? Oh, good. About 80% of the room. I was just kidding. So we're a software company. We've been in business for 30 years. I just added this 30-year logo. A couple folks were by our booth, and they wanted to know if we were a startup. So we've been around a very long time. We've been supporting Fin.js for a few years now, and I'm going to be going through some of what we do and then how we integrate really well with FDC3, which is what Kim mentioned, as well as some of the notifications and why that's kind of important as you look at OpenFin as a solution, and then how Infragistics integrates on top of that. So what Infragistics does is we build UI libraries for all of the major browsers and platforms that are on the market. Since we've been in business for 30 years, we started way back with Visual Basic, and then moved into C++, Delphi, then .NET, of course, and then many years of .NET, and then native iOS, native Android, and now it's Angular, React, web components for complete standardization, and then Blazor upcoming. We actually announced Blazor supports just about 4 or 5 months ago. And to give you an idea, when I talk about UI frameworks, for those of you that don't understand or have never used libraries like ours, it's all of the widgets that make up the screen. For financial services, the biggest area is data grids and data charts. So one of the things about Infragistics is over 50% of our business is in financial services. So it is banks that need high performance, real-time, high volume data grids, high volume data charts, high volume financial charts. And so screens like this that you guys are probably see every single day, if you're not using Infragistics, you should check us out because we could probably help out in your user experience and definitely performance. And when we talk about data visualization, we have analytics tools, but we also can bend these visualizations in really cool ways to give immersive experiences to your customers and ultimately the applications that you build. And what I like to say is that just like with OpenFin, you guys should focus on what you do best, which is your core business. No one knows your business like you do, just like no one knows containers like OpenFin for financial services, and no one knows data grids and data charts like Infragistics. So let us be that partner for you. Let us help you deliver better UX across the board in any platform that you have. So WPF was mentioned earlier. The beautiful thing about WPF, when Kim mentioned it's still in their ecosystem of modern web experiences, it's because of FDC3. So FDC3 gives you this bus that allows all of these applications, new and old, to talk to each other and sort of behave like they were built to do that from the very start. So when we think about FDC3, this slide goes through some of the capabilities, and if you don't know what FDC3 is, which I'm sure most of you don't, it might be a little weird. But the idea is OpenFin is the container. What OpenFin did is created an API that allows different containers to communicate with each other, and those containers can be running in a JavaScript application, Angular, React, jQuery, or they can be a .NET client. It really doesn't matter, but they send messages back and forth, so there's this seamless experience. So when they say Tier 1 is using FDC3 to communicate with some other system, it's through that bus. And it's that seamless bus that brings together the value that you can deliver on the desktop. And I'm going to give a little demo of this in a second, and then how we've simplified it. So if you want to learn FDC3, it's kind of a lot of work. You got to kind of know about it. We've made it into a few lines of code because we're all about delivering that level of productivity. Some of the other newer things that we just shipped, we shipped a tree map control. These are really cool for financial services, so you can do all kinds of neat visualizations with our tree map. I'm going to show this in relationship to OpenFin as well. A lot of folks are talking about machine learning, AI, etc. We're building directives into our grid that allows you to do some pretty cool stuff that otherwise you'd have to write a lot of code to do. So this, for example, is a directive which allows some analytics to happen within a grid, some visualizations to happen within the grid, and for you, it's one line of code. We did all the work. Now, if you want to extend it and add, pump this data up to AWS or Azure, return some model data, whatever you want to do in your grid, you can customize this as well. So that's the nice thing about what's happening here. And then this is just a really rapid display of charts running in Blazor because it's all about WebAssembly and it's super fast. It's all happening in the client. So if you're not familiar with Blazor, it's Microsoft's SPA framework to compete with Angular and React. a few years late. But it's also WebAssembly as well, and that's their shtick. Like when you build your C# app that you wrote in C#, like you don't even have to know JavaScript. It's a WebAssembly DLL on the client, and it just magically works within the browser because all the browsers natively understand WebAssembly. So let's take a look at a demo. The first thing that I'm going to do is just bring up what I just kind of showed in the slide, and this is really cool. So what we did is this is just like a basic data grid, but we added the same sort of quick analysis that you get on Excel for Windows in a directive with the same capabilities. Like I said, this is completely customizable by you. So if you don't want to show data bars and you want to do something unique to your business, your development team can just inject some code, change the icon, and we pass an array of data, and then do whatever you want with the data grid. We really don't care. It doesn't really matter. The other thing is you have some data visualization options here as well. If you don't want to do data visualizations, you can remove that from the directive. But the idea is you need to deliver more value to your users. That's what all of this is about, because the users are getting more and more demanding. So we try to make that easy by giving you capabilities that otherwise would take months and months, and this you can do like with one line of code. Here's another cool example. This is just a data grid. This data grid actually has 9,800 rows, now 10,000 rows. But the reason I bring this up is because it's completely virtualized on a row and column level. And you can do things like start feeding real-time data into the grid. You can see that we're updating 10,000 rows every half a second. I can do things like changes to the dark theme. I can do nice, cool UI stuff like do filters like so. Maybe I don't want to group by settlement. Maybe I want to collapse all of my groups and just look at the index category and look at this particular type. But the idea, this is all happening in like milliseconds, and you didn't have to write any code to do this. We build all of this into our product, all of the UX, and your users just consume it. You set properties on and off. And this grid actually is editable. So you can go into certain fields and start, picking stuff from drop-downs, date time drop-downs, etc. But it's really up to you how you want this to work. So I mentioned FDC3 before and how we've implemented it in our in a component. So basically, FDC3, there's a lot to learn. You have to write a bunch of code to do it. We took all that and just made components that you can import into your React apps, your Angular apps. It doesn't really matter. It's a JavaScript or it's a TypeScript library. It'll really go anywhere. And we're working on the WPF version right now with OpenFin. That's their WPF support's a little in beta right now. But the idea is we want to be able to enable you to use FDC3 with only a few lines of code. So I've got I'm going to show you this running in a second, but here I've got a chart module and a chart component. And basically I'm showing a financial chart, and I'm going to pass messages from some other screen to this using FDC3. But to give you an idea, if you're familiar with using any of these modern SPA frameworks, I'm importing these libraries into my page here in my TypeScript. And if I scroll down a little bit, there's just some goo here. But you'll see I've got this initialized FDC3. So I create a new instance called OpenFin FDC3 of our FDC3 adapter. And at that point, I can subscribe to intents or receive intents. In this case, I'm going to subscribe to an intent. An intent is something that's in that FDC3 API as a message that your application can pull in and then do something with. So the idea is you're sending these tiny messages back and forth because all you need is like a client ID, and then you can light up an entire screen. All you need is a stock ticker, and you can light up an entire screen. So that's the point of sending these messages back and forth. So I create an instance of the message, and in this case, I get, when a message comes in, I'm always listening on this channel for a message. The message comes in, I pull some properties off that message, and then I'm going to go ahead and update my chart. So this is actually already running on a local server. I'm going to go ahead and run the client side. So I'm going to minimize this guy. And this is my stocks dashboard. So I have this very basic launcher, and there's not a lot of UX going on here. But the idea is I'm going to show a couple things. So the first thing I'm going to bring up is this Explorer. And the Explorer is going to allow you right here to see what messages are coming across via this channel on FDC3. So this is our financial chart. It's one of our components. To enable this financial chart, it's just a couple lines of code. You've got cool things like a zoom bar here on the bottom, so you can zoom in and out. We've got built-in filters. I can look at like price channel indicators and do some trend lines and do a bunch of stuff. So it's all kind of built into the component. But what I want to do is view Google on the chart. So I click Goog here, and this is the message that was sent from this application across the bus. Remember, my chart was listening, so my chart just picked up that intent and then displayed something in the actual chart. So for me to do this on my own might take a bunch of lines of code. You're building a bunch of application goo to do this. With FDC3, OpenFin, and the Infragistics chart, it's only a few lines of code to actually make this happen. So earlier I showed off the tree map component, and it's actually the same thing. If I go here and this is looking for the view sector intent, so let me click technology, and you can see that I'm sending messages across, but Kim had mentioned this notification API with FDC3. That's what's popping up here in the bottom. And what we've done with that is we've pulled this out to make it super easy to bring up these notifications on your desktop. So this is an Angular application running in the context of OpenFin with FDC3, and it's actually picking up desktop notifications. And to do something like that, if I go back to my code, is basically one line of code. The reason the notification didn't come up on the chart is because I had this commented out. So if I uncomment this, you can see it says send a notification, give it a title, give it whatever context I have for FDC3, and then send it as an FDC3 message. And now when I send the view chart intent, like I'll do Uber, and we see a notification. So with one line of code, magically I have notifications on my desktop. And I've got a bunch of other things happening here, data grids and whatnot, but if you want to learn more about this, we're right over here. Phil is with us tonight. We came in from New Jersey, and we're happy to talk more about how we integrate with OpenFin and what we're doing with all of these cool UI frameworks. And to wrap up, Infragistics, I'll skip this, but we have offices all over the globe. So we're based in New Jersey, but we're in London, we're in New York, India, Bulgaria, Tokyo, Montevideo, all over the place. So thanks everyone for listening, and thanks Mitra and OpenFin for having us tonight.